The Roman Empire lasted a long time. If you count everything from Augustus to the fall of Constantinople, that's nearly 1,500 years of Roman imperial rule of some form. As you can imagine, that meant a lot of emperors, co-emperors, or regents. Because of the massive amount of power and prestige that came with the title of Roman Emperor, or Augustus, or Caesar, or Autocrat, or whatever title was used at the time, there was a lot of drama around that position, which meant many weird or malicious ways of ending that ruler's reign. It would take forever to explain how every emperor died or left the throne, but I figured there could be an entertaining video on finding out which form of death or end was most common. So I tallied up the results and I'm going to reveal which way was the most common from least common to most common. Here are some rules. Firstly, this is including Unified Rome, Western Rome, and Eastern Rome all the way up to 1453 with the fall of Constantinople. It also includes the Empire of Nicaea since they carried the imperial title between the Fourth Crusade and the recapture of Constantinople in 1261. Also, any empress regents or co-emperor was counted too, because an imperial title of rule is an imperial title of rule. If there's a disputed or unclear end, I put those in their own category, within reason. Like, there's always a theory that every emperor that lived to be old secretly got poisoned, but if there's nothing substantial, I don't take it seriously. So let's do this. So, there were over 30 different ways an emperor lost his throne, and that's me combining assassinations as a single category and disease as a single category. Everything up to number 13 on this list happened to one emperor, so I'm just going to show these reasons via scrolling text. I have to say, some of these are outright hilarious. My personal favorites are being dragged by a deer for 16 miles and dying shortly afterwards from subsequent injuries, which happened to Emperor Basil I, and dying from exhaustion from playing medieval Byzantine polo, also known as Titanian, which happened to Emperor Alexander. Well, now that we have those out of the way, number 12 is the first one to happen to more than one guy. At number 12, we had two emperors who starved to death. Basically, Emperor Basiliscus and his co-emperor son Marcus were immediately taken by Emperor Zeno to be locked in a room and starved to death. Yeah, not a fun way to go. At 11, we have two emperors who died of stroke. I debated on whether to count this under natural causes, especially since the emperors Nerva and Trajan this happened to were really old, but I decided that while strokes are a common way for old people to die, they're massive enough that they're separate. For number 10, we have three emperors who committed suicide. And while it's unfortunate when these things happen, they still happened. Nero being the most famous example when he was declared an enemy of the state by the Senate. This category obviously doesn't include being forced to kill yourself by someone else, since that's just murder and it doesn't count accidental ones either. Moving on, at number 9 we have three emperors who were killed by an angry mob. Sometimes emperors are killed in a mob of a riot or a group of people who just don't like them. I would have said I would have been surprised that this happened to more than one person, but once you really think about how many times there are just spontaneous rebellions, I'm not as surprised. At 8, we have 8 emperors who died in battle. These are emperors who died in battle with a foreign enemy. Civil wars don't count here. Notably, the final Roman emperor, Constantine XI, died in a battle with the Ottomans in 1453 as Constantinople finally fell. At number 7, we have 12 emperors who voluntarily abdicated. Yeah, here's the first happy-ish ending option. 12 emperors actually voluntarily abdicated. This doesn't count forced abdications, which are their own category on this list, but sometimes an emperor just retired, typically in favor of their son. At number 6, we have 16 emperors whose fate is unknown or heavily disputed. Yeah, because unfortunately we don't know everything about everybody. Sometimes an emperor just stopped appearing in the historical records, but there's no mention of a death, exile, or anything. Especially if the emperor's in their 30s or 40s, it's suspicious to just assume natural causes, but again, if it's an assassination, you'd think there'd be a record or something, but no, we have 16 emperors whose ending is a mystery. At 5, we have 21 emperors who died of sickness. 21 emperors died of a sickness of the bacterial or viral kind. Obviously something like gout or gangrene doesn't count for this, but if we were going to break this into multiple categories by type of sickness, 1 was solely a fever, 2 were from tuberculosis, 3 from diarrhea or dysentery, and the other 15 were just a generic or unknown type of disease, plague thing. Frankly, they called a lot of things the plague, even though it wasn't always bubonic, so what are you gonna do? I frankly thought sickness would have been higher, but hey, it only killed 21 people. For number 4, we have the Forcibly, Deposed, and Exiled, which happened to 22 emperors. This type of end was really common in the Byzantine era because of laws that said you couldn't be castrated or blind and be emperor. So sometimes a usurping future emperor wouldn't assassinate the current emperor, but would just blind them or castrate them, or both, and go, well, geez, I guess you can't be emperor anymore, and then just exile the poor fellow. And most of the time they just join a monastery. For number 3, we have my favorite category of death via civil war, which happened to 23 emperors. And this is kind of my favorite category because technically these deaths could be counted as assassination or death in a battle, but I feel like it needs to be its own thing. Because assassination implies a coup or a rogue member of the army or government killing the emperor and taking over. There's a sense of betrayal. Civil wars, though, involve just losing to another army from another faction of the Civil War. Rome had a lot of civil wars, so I wasn't surprised that this category would be this high up. For number 2, we have natural causes for 30 emperors. Yep, we actually have natural causes, simply dying of old age, this high up. Granted, it's out of 200 emperors, so it's a 15% rate, but hey, it's still kind of neat. So by now it's probably obvious what the top one is. Number 1, Assassinations, which happened to 36 emperors. Yeah, no surprise this is number 1. Assassinations are so iconic in Roman history. When we get the image of the decline of Rome, we get things like the crisis of the 3rd century where we just have emperor after emperor getting assassinated. We can further break down this category by type of assassinations. 17 were killed by the army, 8 by the infamous Praetorian Guard, which is why they had to get rid of them in the first place, 2 were poisoned, and 1 hilariously was assassinated with a bucket, while the 8 others just had a different kind of assassination outside of those situations. So the answer of what the most common way a Roman emperor met his end was assassination, with an 18% rate. If we break it down by unified Rome versus Western Rome versus Eastern Rome / Byzantium, we can see some differences, like exile being more common in the East as mentioned previously, but overall interesting results. And this was definitely an interesting video to put together, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Emperor Tiger Star, and I'll see you guys next time.